Yeah, I'm going back in time to the process of Christianization of the Roman Empire during the period of Late Antiquity, which led to what we can term the monotheistic turn, meaning the transition of the antique Mediterranean and Near East into a world composed of monotheistic cultures. This process was studied extensively and from different perspectives. In this contribution, I would like to present a psychological perspective and to argue that such a radical historical transformation was accompanied by a new conceptualization of the man and his place in the cosmos. A new cosmology came about with and through a new psychology. This new psychology attributed relational faculty to the human soul, the Greek psyche, the Latin anima, through which it could encounter God, relate to God, and as a result be transformed. The first part of this paper will show how the great thinkers of the period, whether theologians, philosophers, or other, made use of this faculty to define what process of self-transformation was all about and how to achieve it. The second part of my paper will propose to analyze this language in view of modern relational psychoanalysis in order to understand its psychological significance. My objective is not to apply modern theories of the mind to ancient texts, but rather to search in the ancient texts a psychological layer in the modern sense of the word. This will show that the conceptualization of the psyche as the relational entity is indeed transformative. Yet the impact of such transformation was not only private, it was aimed to produce a larger scale change in the world. The last part of the paper will focus on the most important process of the late antique revolution and the monotheistic turn in general, the act of conversion, in the framework of a new cosmology. Changing the soul proved to be a necessary part of a much more radical change of the cosmos. I would like to start, however, by citing a prayer attributed to the leader of the Qumran sect from the 2nd or 1st century BC, in a text that was named the Thanksgiving Scroll. So, for thou hast not forsaken me in my soul's distress, and thou hast heard cry in the bitterness of my soul. And when I groan, thou didst consider my sorrowful complaint. Thou hast preserved the soul of the poor one in den of lions, which sharpened the tongue like a sword. Thou hast closed up their teeth, O God, lest they render the soul of the poor and needy. Thou hast made the tongue go back like a sword to its scab, lest the soul of thy servant be looted out. Thou hast dealt wondrously with the poor one to manifest thy might within me in the presence of the sons of men. This prayer does not seem to us unique or specifically particular, yet it is one of the first evidence of praying as a conversation between the believer's soul and God's soul, later in the same text. The very use of the Hebrew term nephesh as an entity in distress who seeks the encounter and intervention of God's soul is a new concept. The human soul is the faculty to connect to God's soul in order to reach a salvation by being transformed. Late antique thinkers developed a similar line of thinking. They built on the Platonic concept of the soul being immortal and derived from God and construct the idea of knowing God as a process of self-transformation. Tertullian dealt with this in both his treatise of On the Soul. The anima can know God because she comes from him. In order to reconnect to God, the anima needs to free herself from her mental capacity. By the way, in all these languages, the anima and the soul are, of course, feminine. Connecting to God cannot come from sense perception and cognitive knowledge, but it depends on the disassociation of the anima from the body. States of sleep and ecstasy exemplify the anima's motion towards God. She, the anima, wanders over land and sea, engages in trade, is excited, labors, plays, sorrows and rejoices, pursues the lawful and the unlawful, and clearly shows that she can accomplish much without the body, that she is supplied with members of her own, although showing the need she has of exercising her activity in the body once again. Thus, when the body awakens, it portrays before your eyes the resurrection of the dead by returning to its natural functions. And this, the actual activity of return is very important here. There you have the natural explanation and the rational nature of sleep. Thus, by the image of death, you are introduced to fate. You nourish hope. You learn both how to live and die. You learn watchfulness even when you are asleep. So Tertullian uses this to demonstrate the prophetic nature of dreams. Encountering and knowing God are not dependent on the mechanism senses to mind, but are matter of the anima, in the state of divination, divinatio, which originates from God and enters the anima. This process is open to all believers. Every soul can encounter God, and this is a very important, a very important point. A generation later, this faculty of the soul is conceptualized in the philosophical language that Plotinus develops in order to describe self-transformation. So, often have I woken up to myself out of the body and entered into myself, outside of other things, seeing a beauty of great wonder and trusting that, above all, I belong to the greater part, activating a best life and coming to identify with godly, having been seated in it, coming to that actuality, seating myself above every other intelligible object. After that rest in the godly, when I come down to reasoning from intellect, I am at a loss how I ever came down, and how my psyche has come to be in the body when she is what she has shown herself to be in herself, even when she is in the body. Like Tertullian, Plotinus conditions mental changes by the ability of the psyche to disconnect herself from the surrounding universe. Yet unlike Tertullian, for Plotinus, the mission of the psyche is to reach the higher level of being, the one, by means of contemplation. Plotinus constructs his model in order to enable an ascent to God by the cognitive capacities of the psyche. The motion here is unilateral. The psyche ascends and descends from God. This motion signifies a high level of consciousness that avoids sense perception and external stimuli. It is an obligatory state in the psyche's mission to unite with God. In this unification, she is connected to the mind and is actively thinking, perceiving, reflecting. In other words, true knowledge comes through mental state shared by the psyche and God. There the psyche takes her rest and is outside evils because she has run up into the place which is clear of evils. And she thinks there and is not passive, and her true life is there. For our present life, the life without God, is a race of life imitating that life. But life is the realm that realm is the active actuality of intellect. And the active actuality generated gods in quiet contact with the good that generates beauty and generates righteousness and generates virtue. The psyche conceives this when filled with God. And this is her beginning and end. Her beginning because she comes from thence, and her end because her good is there. And when she comes to be there, she becomes herself and what she was. This conceptualization of a shared psychic dimension in which a relationship is established and maintained between two subjects has concrete meaning. So the soul, the Greek psyche, and God. So this relationship has concrete meaning in relational psychoanalysis, which terms it an intersubjective relationship. So relational psychoanalysis understands the mind in a relational structure model instead of a Freudian drive structure model. And the term itself, relational psychology, was chosen because of the common perspective that the human mind is relationally configured. Stephen Mitchell explained it in an interactional field of the mind, and here is his definition. We are portrayed not as a conglomerate of physical-based urges, but as being shaped by and inevitably embedded within a matrix of relationships with other people, struggling both to maintain our ties to others and to differentiate ourselves from them. In this vision, the basic unit of study is not the individual as a separate entity whose desire clash with the external reality, but an interactional field within which the individual arises and struggles to make contact and articulate himself. Desire is experienced always in the context of relatedness, and is that context which defines its meaning. Mind is composed of relational configurations, and the person is comprehensible only within the tapestry of relationships, past and present. So basically, it's like I'm conceiving myself as, talking to you with relationship with the audience, and then I'm differently in the relationships that I have with my students, with my family, with strangers, etc. And the me, the self, the mind is all this matrix of relationships. So this matrix model reflects the different realities that the mind experiences in relational field. The meaning of this field is intersubjectivity. In other words, it all depends on the individual's ability to perceive oneself in relationships, exactly what I said before. The insights of this psychoanalytical theories about the definition of the mind within the relational field allow us to perceive the radical changes that occurred in the perception of the inner world in late antiquity. These changes were predicated on the construction of the soul as a means to open a new relational dimension that will connect the believer to God in order to achieve mental transformation. In order to understand it, I would like to refer to another psychoanalytical term coined by Donald Winnicott, the potential space, where such relational experiences of the individual person happen. This space is different from both the inner and external realities and therefore is neither inner nor external. It is found in between. First between the baby and the mother, of course, between the baby and the object, and of course naturally between the patient and the therapist. Because this psychic space is an in-between, the subject can experience itself without being separated from another. So experience itself within a relationship, both internally and externally. It is an intermediate space that is neither inside the individual nor outside the world of shared reality. This is why the individual can feel connected and separated simultaneously, and that is the main point. So, the main psychological function of this potential space is to act as an intermediate area of experiencing between fantasy and reality, where playing and culture, of course, Winnicott, so playing and cultural experiences occur. It is a source of creativity, of mental adaptation and change, and it is conceived as a relational dimension, where the mind perceives itself as both connected and separated. I would like to suggest that this is precisely what the believer achieves through forming a private inner relationship with God. To show this as a transformative experience, we turn now to the main objective of the new psychological perception of late antiquity, conversion. I will refer to the Gnostic myth about the psyche as recorded in an Nag Hammadi text known as the Exegesis of the Soul. Wise men of old gave the soul a feminine name. In reality, she is female in nature as well. She even has a womb. As long as she was alone with her father, she was virgin and androgynous in form. But when she fell down into the body and came to this life, then she fell into the hands of many robbers and men of Hebrews. And the wanton creatures passed her from one to another and soiled her. Some made use of her by force, while others did so by seducing her with a deceiving gift. In short, they defiled her, and she was no longer a virgin. And she prostituted her body and gave herself to one and all. As long as the soul keeps running about everywhere, copulating with whoever she meets and defiling herself, she exists, suffering her just desert. But when she perceives the strait she is in and weeps before the Father and repents, then the Father will have mercy on her and will make her womb turn from the external domain and will turn it again inward, so that the soul will regain her proper character. The text not only situates the soul in a relationship with God, but also articulates its transformation, her transformation, and salvation as a process of return, reversion, epistrophe in Greek, to a Father, the God, turning away from ignorance in order to regain the gnosis that the psyche forgot. It is a process of self-transformation away from suffering, which is symbolized here by the unusual metaphor of turning the external womb inward, away from external stimuli, towards the inner divine spark. This process of return, of reversion, enables gnosis and is made possible by being formulated within the framework of a relationship with God, whose grace is indispensable to connect back with the divine. And this is also extremely important. It's not just our soul, it doesn't depend only on the soul, it depends also on the will of God, of course, to connect. That is why this is articulated as a relationship. In a word, the process of self-transformation of the soul is a process of return to a relationship with God. As Plotinus articulates it, the real desire of our soul is what is greater than herself. This is precisely the objective of the process of conversion as reversion. The Christian concept of the soul's reversion as a conversion has precise psychological and philosophical meanings, which are made clear by the Gnostic and Neoplatonic writings. Christian theology about conversion was embedded in an innovative psychological perception that situated men in a new way in the world. However, in contrast to the Gnostic and Neoplatonic thinkers, Christian authors do not only articulated private psychological process of self-transformation, they situated them as a necessary means to place men in a new position in the cosmos. The salvation of all mankind, the world itself, depended on this conversion. This is also why conversion is articulated as repentance. What Christian authors did was to take the private mental salvation that Gnostics and philosophers talked about and transform them into a salvation of the cosmos. Man had a new place in the world. His private repentance, the conversion of his soul, made this salvation possible. In this, the Christian revolution of late antiquity had an unprecedented success. It managed to frame private psychological processes of self-transformation in a cosmological framework and to give them a cosmic meaning. Thank you.
Thank you. Youval, I have a few questions.
Sure.
What brought about this change from cosmology to psychology? Why did it happen? What were the driving forces behind this change?
Oh, wow, that's a big question. I think there is also a medical aspect of all this. I mean, part of this change in the perception of the soul, of the psyche, depended on the invention or the actually discovery of the nervous system in the 2nd century BC, parallel to the Qumran sect, actually, the discourse. And physicians and philosophers, and Galen in particular, were looking for an organ or an abstract organ to connect the nervous system, the stimuli, to the mind. And the soul was found to portray it. And so there was this, there was Plato, of course, and there was the Jewish discourse. And what was missing is to connect all these and to give some kind of a cosmological meaning to it.
And this changed the perception of the self, the individual. Did it also change the perception of God, the other part in this dialogue?
Yeah, naturally, of course. First of all, there was just one, and it was a true existence subject.
Because if you have an individual relation to God, there will be more gods than you can imagine.
Well, yes, but the fact that who can be the God that is the one that can speak to you, right? That you can hear his voice. And here is a Christianity, made a very, well, I didn't bring it back, but for instance, Origin was is in particularly important in that, because, I mean, I didn't speak about it, I just brought it in the Qumran text about what is God's souls. So I only talked about the person's soul, the believer's soul, but what is actually God's soul? Because, your soul has to speak with God's soul, not directly to God. And so he articulated this as Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the soul of God. So and he brings it in a framework of a new cosmology with the creation and everything.
Thank you.